Hello everyone, welcome to Dynamo Release Highlights. I'm Achintya Bhatt, a product manager with the Dynamo team here. I'm super excited to share what's new in Dynamo 3.5.
Hello, everyone. My name is Solom, also a product manager here on the Dynamo team. Super excited to share this new video format, which is new for us compared to just doing the blog posts of the past. So we're excited to bring you release highlights in a more interactive way. And we are going to share some links at the end of this video if you wish to read the blog post or take that more traditional route.
So to start with, we have more package management improvements. So we are continuing to shower our love on package manager experience in Dynamo, because when you think of Dynamo, you think of all the amazing packages that we have and the package authors who contribute to this community. So now we have a new publish wizard in Dynamo Package Manager. So as you can see here, this is cleaner. It has a step-by-step guide, which helps you publish the package.
Awesome. Published package wizard. That sounds great. Did you know that we recently hit like 7.2 million downloads, I think, for package authors? That's a huge number. Pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, that's amazing. And all the users using it, right? They need all the right information to decide which version they need. And that was kind of like our goal on the back end when we were thinking and designing this publish wizard. So I can step you through like what is here and what's new. So let me start with, okay, I'm gonna publish a new package. And would highly recommend putting in some keywords because this helps with the search when users are searching. This makes sure the package shows up in the search. And what is new here is previously we just had the website link. Now we also have the repo link as well as the release notes link. So this was something that was requested by package authors because it's hard to cram everything in this tiny little box for description. So now we can put more information if you have link it here to your release notes or your website and so on. And once we add this information, can go to the next step. So this is the new step here, which is the compatibility info. And this ties in with the magic install button we released in Dynamo 3.4. So to inform users what version of the package to download, depending on what Revit or Civil 3D version they're in, there needs to be some kind of information that the magic install button needs. So this is where, as package authors, you can come in and authors can select which host product the package is compatible with. I'm going to say Civil 3D, and I want to say 2026, and all the point releases of 2026. And I also want to say it's also compatible with Dynamo versions after 3.4. So that was easy. It's a super easy wizard, like basically a form where you can put in all the information, hit next. This particular step is very similar to what we had in the previous package manager publish workflow. So I can go in, select the files, and click next. Review the files, make sure everything is right. If I want to change something, I can go back. And then finally, the final confirm page. I can review everything here. If I want to add something, I can go back and update information and come back in here. And finally, publish. I'm not going to publish right now because I don't want this to be floating around in the world of Dynamo packages. So yeah, so what do you think?
Pretty cool. So Wizard seems to be complete now compared to some maybe of our previous releases. And the compatibility information is a bit of a game changer. And you mentioned the magic install button. How does that work?
Okay, so we'll discard this. So if I go to search here, now there are a couple of ways you can find compatible packages. So we have added a new filter. So if you want to see what are the packages that are compatible, you can quickly search for them just like that. Or if I want to download a particular package, say Monocle, for example, and when I go here, there are a bunch of versions. I don't know which one to install. What the magic install button does is it automatically picks the version of the package that is the latest and is compatible with the version of Revit or Civil 3D that you're in, so that when you click install, it's installing that right version for you, as long as package authors have provided that information.
Right, so we have to be a little careful here, right? Like if you use the filter for compatible, there's still going to be some packages that are going to be compatible technically if that doesn't have compatibility information. So word of caution to those using it in the short term. Hopefully in the long term, our package authors will all add this information in. So big shout out to the package authors here. If you can, please go and add in this compatibility information. Now, question, Achinja, if they don't have the latest version of 3.5 Dynamo, how can they add that compatibility information?
We have the package manager website for that. So we also updated the package manager website. It looks and feels the same to start with, but a lot of work has gone into that. So if I'm a package author, I can go into my packages, I can log in. That will give me access to all my packages. And I can click on any one of these. I can find all the different versions that I have and go in and also update information here from the website. And as a user can also access all of this information from the website as well. So same thing, I'm looking for Monocle, and here you go. I have what the package is, all the versions, and the compatibility information for each of those versions. And then I can find whichever one I want and download it and use it. So yeah, so whatever we have on the package manager client, now it's also available on the website.
Super cool. So thank you for showing that. So call to action, right, to package authors. If you can, we'd love you to come and put this compatibility information in to help out the users of your package. The whole wizard, the whole workflow, the whole package feels awesome. It feels like we've now completed a big jump in package behavior and functionality. I'm very excited to see how much this improves the lives of our package authors. So moving on from packages, I see that we have a bunch of awesome new nodes also in Dynamo, and I've heard about what has been a crowd favorite so far with some of our sort of early exposure customers, the Curve Mapper node. Can you tell me how it works?
Sure. Yeah, so Curve Mapper node, if you look at it, this might feel a little familiar because if you remember Homar's Celery package, there was a graph map node there. So this is kind of like built on top of that. We used that as a baseline and added more features to it. So let me now show you how this works. So I've put in some inputs already, which is I've set the min and the max for both the X and the Y domains. And I've also said that I want to have 100 values created. So that's the count that I've given. And then I can come in and select from there are 9 options here, different types of mathematical curves that I can pick from. So I'm going to use sine wave. So what this does when I hit run is it creates 100 equally distributed points along the x-axis and within the range of 0 to 20. And then it maps those values on these curves and spits those out as y values. So let me hit run here. And as you can see on the background there, that's the points that are generated. I used the point by coordinates. And just to give you a sense of how this works, I have set it to automatic, and as I can move, I'm playing with the amplitude and the frequency, and I can set the shape that I want. So previously, if you had to do it, it was a manual trial and error methods, but now there's a simple UI which lets you pick the different curves that you want, play with the shape, as well as play with the range that you want to give for your domain. I can generate a list of values based on a number of value count, or I can actually give a series of values if I have that and use that as well. So it's pretty neat. We also added some other helpful UI buttons here. Once I'm happy with the shape, I can lock it. So that way, moving around things, I'm not spoiling it. Or what I can also do is I move things around a little too much and I want to reset it. I can do a reset as well. So yeah, so that's how the Curve Mapper node works.
Awesome. So thank you for running down the Curve Mapper node. Like that makes sense technically. And I'm curious if you have any use cases that we think could be used, could apply to the usage of this node.
Yeah, so I can show like one example, which is our twisty tower, because everyone likes to do twisty towers in Dynamo. And what I'm just trying to do is create a twisted tower with asymmetric floors and trying to control the floors using a point while I still want to maintain curved shape so that when I'm looking from the far, it still has that curvy shape. And I'm going to set this to automatic here and play with the curves. And as you can see, it's moving as well. So very useful in a lot of these parametric towers or even like facades, like the one on my background, maybe like even some fancy glue lamp, doubly curved structures. What else? Maybe even like landscape design, thinking it would be useful even there to help with some kind of alignments. Recently saw some examples where people were also using it to create some curved like interior finishes and so on. So a lot of use cases there.
Yeah, super cool. And great for those visually inclined, right? Like I know we have the math nodes in Dynamo and I like math, but it's really so much better to be able to visualize this right in the viewport right there and be able to play with these toggles to be able to move that around. So much more intuitive than we have had in the past, even though if you like math, you can still use those math nodes. So that is super cool. I really appreciate that. Showing that and excited to bring that precision of math together with the creativity of being able to work with it in this visual fashion. All right, thanks for showing the Curve Mapper node. Now, I know Dynamo 3.5 has a few other nodes as well, and I hear there's some nodes that deal with list management coming.
And one of those is, again, another crowd favorite, which is replacing items at multiple indices. So as you know, we have the list replace item at index node, which is very popular as well. But say there is a workflow wherein you have a list of values, numbers in this example, and I'm trying to find the ones which are greater than this particular value here, and I want to replace it. In that case, the list replace item at index node was kind of falling short because what it did is it would do it at each index separate and it would create a multiple list, which is not what users wanted. So we now have the list replace item at indices. So it lets you do it at multiple indices at once. And that saves a lot of time of like list manipulation. And also it's out of the box. So no longer having to like rely on custom packages or like different versions of it and so on. So I hope our users are gonna love this.
For sure. Like this is definitely use cases I've personally run into many times in the past and in the not too distant past as well. So I will be making use of this node for sure. It helps with having to get to a cleaner result. I, in the past, had used numerous different nodes to get to that for those same kinds of challenges that you said. So beyond this, there's also a list group by similarity node as well. Can you take us through that one?
Yeah, so this one I would say has two use cases. So it's more like feeding two birds with one scone kind of scenario. So there are cases where in multiple workflows where users have the need to group based on similarity. And in the world of Dynamo, especially when we are working with geometries and math, A lot of the time there are decimal values with all these trailing values, and sometimes tolerance is needed to group these values. So we added in that tolerance. So if you have a list of numbers or strings, for example, I'll talk about strings next, but let's limit to numbers here. If you're trying to group a list of numbers, you can give a tolerance. So what this does is groups based on the closeness and uses that tolerance to calculate that. Plus, what this is extra useful here in this case is sometimes you have lists which are already sorted, and you want to make sure that when you're grouping it, you want to make sure that you take into account the adjacency of the location of these items within the list. So there is a Boolean value here wherein you can turn on and off, like toggle, whether you want to consider adjacency or not. So in this particular list, as you can see here, I have a list of numbers here, and there are a couple of number like 1.0 values. So if I turn off the Boolean, it's going to group them all together. Whereas if I want to maintain the groups based on their location in the list, then it groups it into separate lists. So I see a lot of value here, especially when you have, like, say you have list of like columns or structures aligned along a Civil 3D profile, where it's aligned based on your coordinates, survey points, and if you're trying to like further group them, that would be a great use case. And then the next one here is with respect to strings. So it will also support strings, and you can give it a tolerance. And what this tolerance does is, like, if there are any like spelling mistakes, or if the values are close enough, say you have conference room A, conference room B, you want to group them all together. So that's another use case of how you can group it. But here, what you see here is like we have room. People do a lot of spelling mistakes, and you don't have to do a lot of list cleaning before you group your list. So this node is kind of get rid of all the additional steps that our users have to do in order to do some list manipulation. So what do you think about this node?
Yeah, no, super cool. I think this is another node I will personally be using numerous different times. I think fuzzy string logic is useful here, right? Especially when we're getting in data from projects in Revit or Civil 3D or beyond that have numerous different people working on them, right? We all think in slightly different ways. And so this helps us navigate some of those inconsistencies that might crop up with things like placement of objects and some of these floating point values, or potentially the way that people spell things, room versus rooms, maybe even capital R versus lowercase r is a case here, right? This gives you the ability to work with the data and then fix it later. Yeah. And I hear one more nodal use case that we're going to look at today. Can you tell us about the trim boundary condition node for the panel nodes?
Yeah, so with that one, let me go find the node. Oh. So if you remember panel surface, previously we had boundary conditions, keep, remove, and remove vertices, but we never had that clean trim option. So if you had a surface and you created panels, and if some of those panels were kind of overflowing, there was no clean way to trim it. And now we have added that particular boundary condition, and that will help you cleanly trim your panel surfaces. So that's a new addition, a small one, but I think it goes a long way.
Right, yeah, this is the, what people probably think is the default condition that is wanted, right? So like the other cases are great in certain contexts, either like ignore panels that are overlapping, or so delete or keep those panels, maybe trim some of the vertices that gave you kind of interesting result that might not have been what you wanted. But this one actually tries to pair the surface with the cutting sort of hole or the missing piece, right? So in the case you see on screen, there is a circular perforation in the surface, and using the trim boundary pattern actually gives you as close to an approximation of that circle as possible. So it gives you unique panels that are cut here, but it does give you those in a way that does showcase and demonstrate that circle. So I see huge power on this, and I'm looking forward to it personally to use. All right, so beyond nodal improvements, we usually have a series of quality of life things that happen. So I know Dynamo 3.5 has those too. Can you tell us about them?
Yes. So first to start with, we have the string node, and now you can resize it. So this was an ask from the users. Why doesn't the string node do that when the watch node does it? So we're like, yeah, that totally makes sense. So yeah, now it's easy. If you have a really long string, you don't need to scroll down. You can set this size of your node. And once you save it, it remembers the size. So that way, next time you open it, you don't have to redo it. So that's kind of neat.
Yeah, super cool. Especially for those who like writing novels like myself. It's going to be a much easier way to interrogate that data without having to scroll for forever. So excited for this one.
And next up is kind of similar. Another minor thing, but also would take a lot of time is we have these default description text in Dynamo when you create a group. And every time I didn't want it, I would have to like delete it. Like that's what users do. And you'd have to do it for each of these groups. So what we did is now we have under preference setting, if you go to visual settings, groups, there is this toggle. I can say, I can turn it off, which basically turns off the default group description. So as you can see, it's all taken care of now. I no longer have to deal with that unwanted default text.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll be using this one too. But curious, if I have groups that already have a description associated with them, what happens when I toggle that toggle?
It keeps it. So if there is an already entered default description, it doesn't touch it. And also, if you want to come back and say, add more description, you can continue to do that. It doesn't remove anything entered by the user or the user enters once they turn that off.
Oh, super cool. And then I hear you've done some improvements to adding pins to wires as well. Can we look at that one?
Yes. So if you remember in the past, the wires weren't that snappy. And what I mean is if you had to kind of activate that icon to add the pin, you had to be like super like on point, like atomic in your kind of movement or zoom in. But right now, as you can see, as long as I'm kind of close, it picks it up. I can add the pins. And the other thing also nice about this is now if I don't have to like zoom in, if I want to see the data, yeah, as in when I hover on it, it takes like a millisecond because the first option is the pin and the next option is you can see the data flowing through the node, through the wire. So that's another small quality of life improvement, but I hope that goes a long way with our users.
Yeah, me too. I heard recently from John Pearson himself that he didn't even know that they were able to be used with the alignment tools. So fun fact, you can use pin with alignment tools too. But this is awesome because I had frustrations myself with trying to zoom in and get those pins when I want to sort of satiate the OCD in myself of graph creation and make sure everything is perfectly aligned.
Another new cool improvement that we have made to groups this time is now you can freeze groups. So I can click on a group, right click, open the context menu, and now there's an option to freeze the group. And if I want, I can after that go in and unfreeze each of the node as and when I run it. So the way I think of it is like sometimes when I'm like zoomed out, I have a pretty good graph and I just want to run like the first section, maybe not like some of these things. So I don't have to zoom in and like find that upstream node. I can quickly freeze a group, run, and as and when I want, I can like start going in and either I can unfreeze the group itself or I can freeze one by one, whatever that I want to do. So yeah, I think this is pretty cool. I'm really excited about this because as a user, I always wanted this too. Like it was quick. I could just do that when I have a really large graph or I'm trying to as in when I'm authoring a graph and I'm testing two different options to quickly just run one particular section or not. Was chatting with John as well as we were testing, and he was also like, I always wanted this. So yes, very excited about this new improvement to groups. We have one other new feature, maybe quality of life improvements, maybe two, I would call it two, is with respect to Node autocomplete. So previously, when you double clicked on a port to see the list of recommendations from Node autocomplete, you quite didn't know which particular port it was referring to. So now we have this purple highlight, which tells you which particular port this recommendation is for. So which is kind of neat. And one other thing is, okay, let me add one particular node here. And then I double click, I'm going to create another one. So previously it would overlap and I had to manually move them around. But as you can see here, now it is smart enough and it tries to clean up the layout by itself so they are no longer overlapping on each other. So that for me is a really big win on our Node autocomplete side.
Totally. Definitely hones some of the rough edges we've had for a little while inside of Dynamo. So very excited to get these out to the community and see what people think about them. All right, thanks Achinja for that rundown. So I know that the last category to talk about really is bug fixes and stability improvements. So what can you tell me about them?
We've done a lot of bug fixes this time, as well as fixed a lot of crashes. So users will see that when they test it. And another thing also we have done is we've made some performance improvements. We will continue to make it. So maybe not right now, they might not be able to feel the difference that much, but there's more to come as well.
Awesome. No, that's totally reassuring. So could you tell us more about the development process improvements?
Yeah, we did a lot of that this quarter. And for our users, this might not come as features, but in the long run, this is going to help us deliver features and releases faster to them. And what I mean by that is on our end, we have done a lot of process improvements in a way that in future, when we do our integration with host products, it's going to be more reliable and faster and also better testing. So that way, whatever we deliver to our users is more good quality product, and also we can get more features faster to them.
Right, yeah. So Dynamo's been on a journey to essentially grow up like Pinocchio, right? To become a real person. In this case, so a lot of investment going on behind the scenes in performance and stability and robustness and all that good stuff. And we've also done some pretty good stuff on the localization front, right? Pretty big win. So as Dynamo is becoming more and more accessible to different people around the world, we're trying to break down those language barriers and ensure everyone can benefit from our features.
Yeah, localization is definitely a win.
For sure. So now where could people get their hands on Dynamo 3.5?
So it's available right now. You can go to dynamobuilds.com and .org. Not sure. It's also linked below in this video, so you can download Dynamo 3.5 and use it in the sandbox version. We'll have to wait for a couple of more weeks for it to be available in Revit and other host products, but definitely give it a try with the Dynamo sandbox.
Awesome. And if users want more details than what we've covered today, where might they go to find them?
We have a lot of detailed blog posts specific to what we have talked about. There are 3 blog posts, so all linked below this video. And also for those who are curious to learn about some of the things which we might not have talked in a blog post, there's always the release notes. So also linked below this video. So, and if anything else, if they have questions or anything, we have a Dynamo forum, so people can reach out to us, and that way, we'll make sure that we can answer them or take their feedback.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey, Achincha, and anyone who's listening for joining us on this journey. It's a new format, like we said. We want to trial sort of getting in front of you, getting a sort of putting names to faces, putting some voice to the release notes, to the blog post. And if you're curious about visiting or looking at anything else that we're up to, we have a public roadmap, so please go and check that out. And like Achincha said, there's going to be a bunch of different links at the tail end of this video to come see. Absolute pleasure having you along for the ride today, Achincha, and I'm excited to see what Dynamo 3.6 and beyond bring.
Same here.